story I have for you today is a really interesting story, and I like to call it the day I saved Ronald Reagan's life, but I didn't. It was sort of it could have happened, but it was an incident that happened where um, it was a bomb threat. Basically, what happened, and I was involved. So basically, what happened was I was working in 1976 at KCMJ Radio in Palm Springs, and it was an old radio station that had been there like forever, and it was actually in a old burned out building in North Palm Springs. Half the building was closed off because years ago they had a fire and they just never did anything with it. They still had half the building that operated. When you go in the morning and you would smell burnt wood, for years afterwards. So, but I was there to do, I was hired there to do the logs. I was the traffic director, which meant not traffic like in the air or on the ground or on streets and stuff, but traffic is the person who does the logs in a radio station. So the logs where you keep all the commercials, you have to keep track and mark everything off and the stuff that went on while you were on the air. And I also did a sports report every morning, and I did some weekend disc jockey, and then I did like a 2-hour lunch thing during the middle of the day to relieve the other two disc jockeys. I was a disc jockey for that as well. And the other thing I did is we carried College of the Desert basketball and football games. So our program director, Jerry London, and our general manager, Bill Hessen, were the play-by-play guy and the color guy for the basketball and football games for College of the Desert. And I was there to engineer back at the studio. So they would be there with a remote and doing a remote broadcast. I would be back at the station playing the commercials and taking the cues and keeping track of the logs and all that kind of stuff. Well, this was 1976. Reagan had not yet declared, I don't believe he had yet declared that he was going to run for president. So the situation was this. I was in the studio on a Saturday night, and the College of the Desert game was taking place. And just normal stuff, just sitting there, and all of a sudden the phone rang, and I was the only one in the building. And I had to answer the phones, of course. The phone rang, and a guy on the other end of the line said, "Listen close and listen fast. I've just planted 2 bombs at the Canyon Hotel set to go off in 45 minutes. And he said it really fast. I said, "What?" He said, "Listen close and listen fast. I just planted 2 bombs set to go off at the Canyon Hotel in 45 minutes. I said, "Oh, man, I can't handle this." And I hung up on him. Go back into the studio, and I said, "Oh, crap, that's a bomb threat." Man, I didn't say, "Oh, crap." I said something else. But anyway, well, what's happening at the Canyon? Who's at the Canyon Hotel? So I go into the news director's office, and I'm looking for the local paper and the Desert Sun, which we call the Desperate Sun. And I finally found out, sure enough, Ronald Reagan is speaking at the Canyon Hotel this night. So I said, okay, what do I do? Well, first thing I got to do is call the cops, right? I got a bomb threat. So I call the local Palm Springs Police Department, and they said, okay. And they contacted the next people up, and all of a sudden I'm starting to get calls. I'm getting calls from the California Highway Patrol. I'm getting calls from the Sheriff's Department. I'm getting calls from the FBI. They're all calling me at the radio station, and I'm answering the phones. Well, I'm not paying any attention to the game that I'm supposed to be engineering in the other room, right? And in the studio. And out of the corner of my ear, I hear Bill calling for the commercials. Of course, I'm not in there. I'm in the office, 2 rooms away. I could still hear them because we had speakers, but I'm answering the phones. I'm talking to cops. They're asking me questions like, what did the guy sound like? Did he have an accent? Did he do this? Because what happened was they evacuated the Canyon Hotel. They went through with the bomb sniffing dogs, found nothing. They found nothing, but they evacuated. They stopped Reagan from speaking. He went back in. He made some comment about law enforcement and how terrorism in our country or whatever it was. And then he went on with the event, and the event took place. So these two, our program director and the general manager, are there still calling for commercials. And I'm hearing, Bob, you there, Bob? Bob, you there? Bill, is he there? I don't know. Maybe. What do you think happened? hey, we should call the state. We can't call the state. We didn't have cell phones back then, okay? And they didn't have a direct line back to me. I was, it was basically coordinated over the air. But I'm sitting here. I went to go back in the studio, and the phone rang. Sheriff's Department. I got to talk to them. And this is more important to the game. I'm sorry, it is more important. And it's a Saturday night. Nobody was listening to this game. Okay, we had a few people maybe, but not really. And so eventually, I'm trying to think of how it all ended out, but I got back in the studio, the phone stopped ringing, I got back in the studio, I made up some commercials. The game was toward the end, and they somehow got a hold of me and called in, and I told them what happened, and they realized what it was. But in the meantime, my news director, Mike Meenan, called in. He said, "You got this call?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Don't put it on the air." And I said, "Mike, I'm not an idiot. Got a ball game on anyway. Why would I put a bomb threat on the air?" At that time, you didn't put bomb threats on the air. If you had a bomb or explosion, sure, but not a bomb threat. So anyway, that's basically what happened. But so the next day, the Desert Sun had the story about, the event and the bomb threat, how the Canyon Hotel got cleared out and everything, and that the call came in to local disc jockey Bob Brill. The Riverside Enterprise, which is a little further away, covered Riverside County, said there was a call to a local radio station about the bomb threat. The LA Times had the story and didn't even mention the bomb threat. That was it. By the time I got to LA, I wasn't even in the picture anymore. So anyway, that's how I saved Ronald Reagan's life. Tomorrow we'll have another story for you. Thanks for joining me.